We'll move on to item number 5, which is the petition of the Pāti Māori to change our official name to Aotearoa. We've got papers to be tabled and released from Hori, and we are hearing evidence, first of all, from Hobsons Pledge.
I did want to go in person.
Casey Costello and Dr. Don Brash. Tēnā kōrua, welcome to the Māori Affairs Committee. Thank you for your submission into the committee. We've got 10 minutes for you, so the time is yours.
Kia ora, thank you for inviting us to speak, and we appreciate the opportunity. We recognise the reason for this hearing is the Te Pāti Māori petition. Don and I represent Hobsons Pledge, which was established in 2016. We have a supporter base of over 140,000 who all share the belief that all New Zealanders should be equal before the law. We recognise and celebrate our egalitarian and multicultural identity and advocate for the respectful inclusion of all people who call New Zealand home. We fundamentally oppose the change of the name of our country to Aotearoa, and our submission summary provided last month is the key reasons for our opposition. We recognise the reason for this hearing is the Pāti Māori petition, 20,047 signatures. It is their assertion that this petition is recognition of the importance of the issue and the strength of the desire for change. By way of context, Hobsons Pledge has gathered 133,189 signatures in a petition that opposed changing our country's name. In addition, Curia market research polling in 2021 established that 49% of New Zealanders opposed and 22% were neutral. And on the 5th of March, News Hub polling concluded that 52% wanted New Zealand to remain the name of our nation. Our submission includes 5 key points as to why changing our nation's name is not supported and highlights the risks to New Zealanders. Firstly, and importantly, is there is no historical confirmation that Aotearoa was ever used by early Māori as the name of New Zealand, with this name only appearing some years after signing of the Treaty of Waitangi. In Te Tiriti, the words we used for New Zealand are New-Tirini. In the 19th century, the name of Aotearoa was mainly used in reference to the North Island. It was used specifically in legislation, such as when legislation in 1886 was translated, the North Island Main Trunk Railway Loan Application Act in 1886, when that was translated, it referred to the North Island as Aotearoa. Popular use of Aotearoa was noted between 1850 and 1900, but no written reference has ever been found prior to 1850. And although I recognise that pre-colonial history was not written down, there has to be recognition for the immense and detailed work that was done from individuals such as Samuel Marsden, Henry Williams, Augustus Earle, George Craig, William Yates, Joel Pollock, George French Angus, Tyrone Power, William Wade, all of whom provided detailed examination of Māori mythology, religion, whakapapa, history, legends, and none referred to any use of the term Aotearoa prior to 1850. In addition, our second key reason is there are examples of nations around the world that have changed their names, and this has resulted, contrary to the claims of the petition, in not a better way forward, but an actual resulting in conflict. If you refer to Burma, changed to Myanmar, and South Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. Our next key point is that any change of our nation's name would demand enormous financial investment from taxpayers and businesses. This cannot be justified and supported at a time when we're all struggling so much financially. And the impact on businesses is beyond just the name of referring to our country, but every website that refers to .nz, every company name that refers to New Zealand in their title. All of those rebranding issues would be significant, and the cost should not be borne by taxpayers at this time. In addition, changing the name of New Zealand is proposed as the commencement of a range of changes to the names of cities and towns and places within New Zealand. The assertion in the Māori Pāti petition is that this is a reinstatement of original names, and this again is not supported in our nation's history. Our cities and towns and places have been created by people who toiled, sacrificed and unified to create infrastructure, buildings, parks and communities that now identify under those names. I'm not suggesting that we ignore our and issues, some conflicts throughout our history, but it would be an affront to the efforts of those individuals and communities to ignore this contribution by reverting to names that may or may not have been used by Māori to describe the area of land that the towns and cities now occupy. And finally, Aotearoa has no international recognition or appreciation. The risk to international markets, tourism, reputation from changes must be considered in this consideration of change. Should it be this committee's decision to proceed further with the change of our country's name, then we implore you to ensure that New Zealanders are given the opportunity to engage in this discussion and have their voices heard through a binding referendum. Thank you for your time.
Were you going to contribute, Dr. Brash, or?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I basically want to endorse what Casey Costello has said. 2 points I'd emphasise. One, as she mentioned, the great majority of New Zealanders are either indifferent to changing the name or strongly support the retention of the word New Zealand. Various polls have suggested that beyond a shadow of doubt, most New Zealanders want to retain the name New Zealand. But I think the second point is also she made strongly, in the treaty itself, the Aotearoa was not used as the name for New Zealand. Well, almost certainly there was no name for New Zealand at that time, but the one that they used was Nutarani. And if there's to be a change of name at all, it would surely be to that name. But I think there should be no change at all. And the word name New Zealand goes back before any use of Aotearoa. So I'm just emphasising the points that Casey has made.
Thank you. Committee members, questions?
I've got one. I'm ringing here today, and I've been really fascinated by the discussion and the way that things have gone in the select committee, because our culture has changed so much that it is much more inclusive. I can't see that what you're saying makes much sense when Aotearoa is so widely used and so widely loved by New Zealanders that I just can't see your problem. So what, basically, is my question. Why does it matter what you're saying when this has become such a welcome part of a change in culture that we all love the name? It also puts us right at the top of any search for countries. So even on a commercial application, Aotearoa is a way better name. New Zealand doesn't seem very exciting.
If I can respond, you're saying that everyone thinks it's great. That is not supported by the polling. The polling says exactly the opposite of that everyone is okay with it. And it is a big issue.
So what's your real objection then? Because it's not what you said then, is it? If you're talking about it being about popularity, then what you said, that it hadn't been used before, isn't your real objection. It's just a justification, isn't it?
So one of the points we made was that Aotearoa was not the original name of the country. That was one of the points we made. The other points we made were that we had scientific polling, not just done by us, by other organisations, that said that the nation does not support. You said that it's a popular position. The polling does not support that it's a popular position.
So go back to the original question, which is why do you think that it's so important whether it was historically used?
It was one of the points and one of the justifications.
Why do you think that matters? Just answer the question.
So the fact that you're changing it to Aotearoa was based upon it being the original name of New Zealand, and we're saying it's not the original name of New Zealand.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any other members?
Yeah, I do. Good morning, Casey. Morning, Dr. Brash. Nice to have you here and part of our meeting this morning. Thank you for your contribution. My question is the evidence of the use of the word Aotearoa only based on Pākehā ethnologists and historical account? Or have you taken into consideration the Māori oral account, which has been here near on 800, between 800 and 1,000 years before the first European arrived?
Yes, and that was why we referred to the historians that recorded an immense amount of our history and our culture and the mythology, and none of them who we recognise recorded extensively, not only te reo, but included a number of parts of our whakapapa, our mythology, our legends were all recorded, and we've accepted those accounts, but none of them, as they did record the oral accounts that were provided to them at the time when they came to New Zealand, used the term Aotearoa. So if it had been part of our oral history, why would they have not referenced it anywhere in those accounts?
Are you Māori, Casey? Can I ask
Yes,
that
I
question? Okay, so you're telling me that the accounts given by Pākehā ethnologists and history reflects the 1,000 to 800 years before the first European hit these shores? Because I'd like to see that documentation. I'm quite researched myself, and I haven't found one, but I can tell you there are many mōtetea out there that do mention the word Aotearoa. They are mōtetea that are pre the arrival of the European to Aotearoa. And I can also tell you that our Pacific relations also have used the word Aotearoa for many, many years, well before the colonization of the Pacific. And so, you know, I'm just trying to get a hold on where you're getting your whilst you hold your position that it wasn't used until the 1850s and the 1840s and all these 18s you've used, when we were here 800 to 1,000 years before any of those ethnologists or historians arrived here in this country.
Why was it not used in the treaty? If it was used, why was it not used in the treaty?
Dr. Brash,
in the treaty.
we're having problems with your
Aotearoa was
connection,
not
so we
used
can't.
in the treaty.
Oh, in the treaty.
Okay.
Yes, because the treaty was translated. It was a transliterized word for New Zealand, New Zealand. But that does not give it the right, because it was only signed in 1840. We're talking about a people who had been here 800 to 1,000 years before the treaty was signed. And so my question is to you, have you done extensive research within Māori oral history that can back up your claim?
So to clarify, to say the term wasn't used, I'm not saying the term wasn't used. I'm saying that as reference
Thank you. You've answered my
to
question.
how that whole country. So you're stating that it was the name used to name our entire country, and what we're saying, it wasn't used to name the entire country. And in fact, to suggest that Māori were using a name for the entire country is contrary to how we viewed ourselves. We were a hapu-centric society. We didn't view ourselves as one nation or one people or one. So to suggest we were using a term to name the entire country of Aotearoa, and that's just one aspect of our reasons for why changing the name, if we elect to change the name, then there's a discussion of what that name change should be to. And the justification for using Aotearoa is that it was always the name for New Zealand, and we're saying it wasn't always the name for the entire country of New Zealand. It may have been a term used by Māori, and it was used more frequently to name the North Island, which is quite commonly known. But what we're saying is, if you're going to change the name of the country, and that's the reasons you're changing it, then that should be further scrutinised.
Yeah, well, that's not a. Do you think that Māori should actually have that point of view should be a Māori point of view? You have the word New Zealand. That didn't go through any petition process. It definitely didn't go through a referendum. And if you did go through a referendum back in the 1840s, Pākehā would have been the minority in that referendum. You wanted to go to referendum now, it's the tyranny of the majority, and it doesn't do any justice to the indigenous peoples of this country who are tangata whenua. And so what I'm asking now is, you haven't answered my question, do you have any evidence past the 1850s that you spoke about, any oral evidence that has been captured by Māori where the word Aotearoa has been used for this country? I don't want to talk about the North Island and South Island, that's all divisive and new kōrero to us, because the Pacific have always called this country Aotearoa, Aotearoa. They have for over hundreds of years. And so they don't say Aotearoa, we're going to the North Island. They recognize these islands as Aotearoa.
What's your question, bro?
And so my question is, do you have any evidence to push past a Pākehā narrative that you've shared with us today that actually captures the oral histories of Te iwi Māori?
I think I do, because I don't accept the works of the likes of Samuel Marsden as Henry Williams as a Pākehā narrative. I believe they were reflecting accurately what was the beliefs and history of Māori. And we've relied on those histories extensively. So to suggest that they weren't reflecting what was oral history at the time, and go by, and I've confirmed with you, I'm not saying Aotearoa was not a term used. I'm saying that even on the basis of our own culture and our own heritage, that's not how we saw our country, our land. We didn't see it as one country.
Thank you, Casey. One question from Haere Te Hipango.
Thank you, Ms. Costello and Dr. Brash. From your evidence, written evidence, you've referenced polls and percentages based on either New Zealand or Aotearoa. The Select Committee has a petition for a name change to Aotearoa only. My question, is there any objection from your organisation to a merging of Aotearoa New Zealand? The polls have just been based on either one Aotearoa or the other New Zealand, and your objection is to Aotearoa. My question, is there support from your organisation to a name change of Aotearoa New Zealand?
No. Short answer is the polls that we've done ask not just Aotearoa versus New Zealand, but what is your preferred name for New Zealand? And a majority, a small majority, 52% roughly, said New Zealand, and the balance were divided between those who don't have a view, those who support Aotearoa, and those who support Aotearoa New Zealand.
With respect, Dr. Brash, thank you, Dr.
Sorry.
Brash. With respect, could you please point out in your written submission where it provides a percentage of those either in support or against a name change to Aotearoa New Zealand? Because I cannot see it.
Yeah, we didn't include the full scientific polling, but I'm happy to send it through to the committee. We did include the separation of the different name options, and I'm happy to send that through to the committee.
Thank you.
Ka pai. Thank you. That's all we have time for. So thank you, Dr. Brash. Thank you, Casey, for your contribution to the committee on this very important issue. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ake te.